A tank battle rages in the snow. The Americans are pinned down by German infantrymen and artillery fire from their positions inside of their tanks. Their radios are dead and it looks like the attack will fail. But then, just when all hope seems lost, help arrives in the form of one of World War I's greatest generals. Hello, this is the story of the Battle of the Bulge, where George S. Patton single-handedly defeated Hitler's elite SS Panzer Division. The year before this battle, Operation Market Garden had ended in failure for the Allies, leaving the Germans in possession of several bridges across the Rhine River, which made invading West Germany much more difficult. This led to the Allies creating a new plan. They would launch an offensive through Belgium and Luxembourg in what would become known as the Battle of the Bulge. The plan called for British and Canadian forces to take the northern prong, while American troops under the command of General George Patton would punch through the center. On December 16, 1944, Patton's men crossed the German border, quickly capturing several towns. However, the next day, the Americans hit a roadblock. The small town of Bastogne was heavily defended by the 101st Airborne Division, and after days of fighting, it became clear that the Americans would not be able to dislodge them. This forced Patton to send out a request for assistance. He needed a strong force to break through the German lines and relieve the 101st Airborne before it was too late. As soon as he heard about the American request for backup, he saw an opportunity. If he could just hold off Patton long enough, he might be able to turn the tide of the battle in his favor. So Hitler ordered his best troops to the front, the 1st SS Panzer Division. As soon as the order was given, the elite German troops raced to the front in trucks and tanks. It was a race against time, but they were almost there. Meanwhile, the Americans were still trying to push forward, but the Germans were determined to stop them. At around PM, the first American tanks reached the outskirts of the village. But before they could even get close, they were met with heavy machine gun fire from the German defenders. One by one, the American tanks were knocked out until only 2 remained. The remaining tanks retreated, but the damage was done. The Germans had proven that they were more than capable of holding off the Americans. But as the sun began to set over the horizon, something unexpected happened. The German troops started to retreat. The Americans were caught off guard and didn't know what to do. Was this a trick? What was the real reason behind the sudden withdrawal? But no matter what the reason was, the Americans were not about to let this chance slip by. They poured everything they had into the fight, and slowly but surely they began to push the Germans back. The Americans had finally broken through, but as they began to explore the area, they realized something was wrong. There was no sign of life anywhere. Where were the German troops? Had they simply fled, or was there something else going on? The Americans were about to find out. As the Americans moved deeper into the area, they began to come across abandoned German vehicles. It became clear that the Germans were not just retreating, they were running for their lives. The Americans had won a major victory, but it came at a cost. Several of their vehicles had been destroyed and many of their soldiers were injured. But then something incredible happened. Out of the corner of his eye, one of the American soldiers saw something moving in the trees. At first he thought it was just a rabbit, but then it moved again and he realized it was a person. The soldier quickly radioed for backup, and soon enough, a group of German prisoners were being marched toward the rear. The Americans had captured some valuable intelligence. It turned out that the Germans had been expecting reinforcements, but they had arrived too late. The Americans had already taken control of the situation, and there was nothing they could do about it. The German prisoners were interrogated, and it was discovered that the entire 1st SS Panzer Division had been wiped out. Patton wasted no time in taking advantage of the situation. He ordered his troops to advance as far as possible and then hold their positions until reinforcements arrived. The Americans pushed forward and were soon engaged by German forces. The fighting was intense, but the Americans were able to hold their ground. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, more German troops appeared. The Americans were being attacked from 2 sides and it looked like they were going to be overwhelmed. But then something amazing happened. More American troops arrived on the scene and the tide of the battle turned. The Americans were now attacking the Germans from 3 sides, and it was only a matter of time before they were completely surrounded. But the Germans were not about to give up without a fight. They launched a desperate counterattack, but it was too little. Too late, the Americans were victorious, but they had suffered heavy casualties. Despite the loss of life, the battle was a major turning point in the war. The Germans were on the run and the Americans were in hot pursuit. The SS Panzer Division had been one of Germany's most feared units, but they had been completely wiped out by Patton's army. In the aftermath of the battle, the Americans continued their advance into Germany. The German troops were demoralized and the Allies were able to capture large amounts of territory in a very short amount of time. While the battle itself was significant, it also had far-reaching consequences. The destruction of the SS Panzer Division was a major blow to German morale, and it also sent a message to other countries that aggression would not be tolerated. In the years since the battle, it has been remembered as a symbol of courage, determination, and the fight against tyranny. What makes the story of the Battle of the Bulge even more remarkable is the fact that it was largely forgotten until relatively recently. Despite being one of the most important battles of World War II, it was not widely remembered or discussed until the late 20th century. This is likely due to a number of factors, including the fact that it was overshadowed by other major conflicts taking place at the same time, such as the war in the Pacific and the Soviet Union. Additionally, the battle took place in a relatively remote area of Europe, which may have contributed to its obscurity. However, in recent years, there has been a renewed interest in the Battle of the Bulge, thanks in part to the efforts of historians and veterans who have worked to keep the memory of the event alive. Today, there are several museums and memorials dedicated to the battle, and it is widely recognized as one of the most important events of World War II. The Battle of the Bulge was a turning point in World War II, but it almost ended in disaster for the Americans. Thanks to Patton's leadership and the bravery of the men under his command, they were able to turn the tide of the battle and defeat Hitler's elite SS Panzer Division. This victory had far-reaching consequences, not only for the war, but also for the world as a whole. It was a testament to the power of courage, determination, and the fight against tyranny. And on that ends our tale of the Battle of the Bulge. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until then, stay safe and we'll see you in the next one.